one of the country's most reputable transfer journalists has revealed that Tottenham Hotspur's top target does indeed have a release clause. But will Daniel Levy pay it? Chelsea, once again, are trying to steal all of Arsenal and Manchester United's targets, and Manchester City have made potentially the worst decision in the history of the Premier League. I'll be telling you all about that and more in today's daily transfer news. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do drop the video a like, press subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to receive daily transfer news into your inbox, press that bell button as well so you get notifications as to when the videos come up. Also, if you want to become a pro member or a Patreon member, all the details in the description box. Only £1 a month and really helps me to make this daily content for you. But let's get on to it. First up, as I mentioned, Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace. What a player he is. Did you watch him against, or for England the other night? Sorry, he was the only England player in that incredibly boring friendly against Bosnia to really set it alight, to take the game by the scruff of the neck, to try and beat players, to show a little bit of passion and willing and drive and determination. And he is Tottenham's top target this summer. I've been saying it for months. He is exactly the kind of player we need. Someone who can do it a little bit differently. Bring a little bit of je ne sais quoi to the Tottenham Hotspur creative hub. And David Ornstein, up there with Romano, I think, as the most reputable transfer journalist, has said that he does indeed have a release clause, and Tottenham are doing everything they can to explore trying to get him into the club. Now, there have been a lot of news, this week, yesterday, in fact, about outgoings from Tottenham as well, and I'll be bringing that to you. But I really do think those two things are intertwined. If Spurs can get rid of some of the wage bill, as they plan to do, if they can kind of release or sell kind of 8, 9, 10 players from the squad that do not suit Ange Postecoglou's style of play, then I can foresee them going out and getting Eze and maybe even 1 or 2 more incredible signings too. Watch this space. Let me know in the comments, if you're a Spurs fan, how much do we need that player? And if you don't think it's Eze, who should we be going for instead? Next bit of transfer news for Spurs. Apparently we're showing a strong interest in Sevilla striker Youssef En-Nesyri. He is a Moroccan international, and the Spanish club want around 30 million euros for the 27-year-old. Once again, showing that we are looking at number 9s, wide forwards who can play across the front line, as well as that kind of creative element that we need extra further behind to kind of make it, I don't know, put some pressure on James Maddison, I guess, as the number 10 or the number 8, to make sure that we have enough players to get through that Europa League run as well, with players in every position to put, I don't know, just to give us some extra squad depth that we didn't really have this season, even though we had so few games. Meanwhile, the rumours about Conor Gallagher do not go away. However, even though all the reports coming out saying that Tottenham are still interested in him, Aston Villa have really made the running in terms of having talks with both his agent and Chelsea about him. Chelsea determined to only get £50 million for Conor Gallagher this summer and not a penny less. Jay Harris at The Athletic says that Spurs also like Onana at Everton in that kind of midfield role. And like I said, he's really banging on this week about how Spurs are still interested in Conor Gallagher, but it will only happen if the price is right. What do you guys think? I personally wonder whether at the moment Tottenham's transfer recruitment and who they're looking at is maybe a little bit too led by some of those clubs who are struggling in terms of financial fair play and profit and sustainability rules. The only real links that are coming out are those for, you know, Conor Gallagher, Morgan Gibbs-White, those kind of players at clubs who may well have to sell before June the 30th. Are we concentrating too much on that, do you think? Or do you think, as we did with Richarlison, where we managed to get him for, you know, just under £60 million because Everton needed the money, are we right to kind of try and cherry pick those players? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Paul O'Keefe has said yesterday that Brentford want between 60 and 70 million pounds for Ivan Toney. This is currently too high for what Tottenham are looking to spend. And that really scans with everything we're hearing coming out of Spurs at the moment. I know it frustrates a number of you, but having to kind of get rid of some of this kind of squad, the players in the squad who are not in Ange's plans before we can really look at spending any kind of great sum of money on players to come in. I know what you're going to say, and some of you do say it in the comments, and I appreciate all of your comments. You say, what's happening? Like, we've got this new stadium. Everyone says how much money it makes. But the reality is we still have big loans, we still have big debts, and we have a big flabby squad full of players who do not suit the system. So we've got to kind of trim that before we can get those players in. But it shows we are interested in Gallagher, we are interested in Toney, but we have to trim it before we're willing to take those risks on the money. And whether other clubs will swoop in like it looks like Villa are for Gallagher remains to be seen. And another Athletic report that came out yesterday really kind of sits with this, which is that there's no set budget for Tottenham this summer, but they will make decisions on players on a case-by-case basis. The club is in a strong financial position and should be able to strengthen considerably before the new season starts, but it will be decided along with however many players we can get out of the door. Apparently, according to David Ornstein as well yesterday, he says that Tottenham have been frustrated at the players who don't want to move, even though they're not in the plans of the manager. That's been over the last few years, not just right now. And that, I'm afraid to say, is quite common in the modern day world of Premier League football. These players come in, they're given big wages, and then if it doesn't work out, they are not going to leave unless they get at least those wages somewhere else, if not more, and they do not want to move down a level. And the place where I think this is going to be shown the most is at Chelsea, where they've signed so many of these young players on 8-year deals on huge wages. And when it starts to be shown that it doesn't work out for them, as it already has to some degree, they are going to find it impossible to get those players off the books. And that is going to make it hard for them continually with profit and sustainability rules or whatever the replacement to PSR is that the Premier League bring in. Meanwhile, Giovanni Lo Celso has rejected a move to Saudi Arabia. Real Betis are interested in bringing the player back to the club. He was there earlier in his career, and the player is also keen on moving to Spain. He's not interested at the moment in moving to Saudi Arabia, but Betis are finding Tottenham's demands of £20 million to be excessive, but they do believe they can find an agreement. Well, this is familiar patterns, is it not? Tottenham always asking for a little bit too much for their players and therefore finding it hard to get them off their books. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Ask them for 15 million then. Take £15 million, move him on, get him off the wage bill and spend that money elsewhere. Are you in agreement? Let me know in the comments. Antonio Conte is one step away from the Napoli job. Apparently, the ex-Spurs manager will be named as Napoli coach today. And he is apparently keen to reunite with none other than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg at Napoli. A mainstay of Conte's Tottenham Hotspur team, Pierre Højbjerg has all the attributes for a Conte side in terms of his aggression, his drive, his teamwork, and you can totally see that one happen. That rumour is from Corriere dello Sport in Italy, and I say, once again, just go to Conte, go to Napoli, say, for £15 million, you can take Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. He is surplus to requirements at Spurs. He's been a great servant to the club, but he's not quite right for where we need to go now. Another story related to Riccardo Calafiori, who's the centre-back that Spurs have been interested in from Bologna this summer. Apparently, the sell-on fee that his previous club, FC Basel, have on him is as much as 50%. So 50% of any transfer fee that Bologna get for him goes to FC Basel, and that could make it difficult for Spurs, I think, because they will not want to up the bid that they give to kind of make that make sense to Bologna. Meanwhile, Tottenham have released a statement this morning saying we can confirm the departures of Japhet Tanganga, Ryan Sessegnon, Eric Dyer and Ivan Perisic following the conclusion of their contracts. We thank Japhet, Ryan, Eric and Ivan for their service to the club and wish them all the very best for the future. Now that basically renders a lot of what I said in yesterday's episode about Japhet Tanganga completely void. I thought maybe they were going to take up his extra year option, as in Spurs were going to take it up, and then they would try and get a transfer fee from Millwall for him, but they didn't. They've let him go, and now Japhet Tanganga is free to go and play wherever he wants. He was a big hope when he started coming in under Jose Mourinho, but for me, and this is no shade on Japhet Tanganga, I think that was a moment where Jose was just looking for players who would give it all in training, 100% for the shirt, to almost like show up some of those players who weren't doing that, by which I mean Tanguy and Dembele, for instance. And for me personally, Tanganga never really had what it took at that stage of his career, certainly, to make it in the Premier League at a club like Spurs. So good luck to Japhet. Hopefully he'll get the move he wants. He did very well at Millwall. And also, of course, Eric Dyer doing brilliantly at Bayern Munich. Perisic back at Hajduk Split doing well and going to be playing in the Euros this summer, even though he got that big ACL injury. And I've spoken before about Ryan Sessegnon. I hope he gets a move to a club that he likes. Rumours yesterday actually that Fulham may be exploring a little bid to get him back to the club on a free, somewhere he'd feel comfortable. He played some of his best football, and I'd love to see him get fit and build his confidence again. Ryan Sessegnon, I know a lot of you will disagree, and let me know if you do. Happy, football is subjective. We can have these chats in the comments. But Ryan Sessegnon is a very talented player, and if he can build his confidence back up, he could get to the top again. I'm sure you've seen this, but in the international friendlies last night, Troy Parrott scored a winner for Ireland against Hungary, who had previously been on a 14-match unbeaten run. He scored a last-minute winner against them. Meanwhile, clean sheets in nil-nil draws for Radu Dragusin with Romania and Vicario for Italy. I want to talk a little bit more about Troy Parrott's winner. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out on YouTube. He's one-on-one. The defender's made a mistake. He's one-on-one with the keeper. Last minute of the game, it's 1-1. And he's got a player to his left who he could pass to. Now, I've seen a lot of comments about this on YouTube. Some people saying that the reason he didn't pass to the player on his left is because the player, his teammate I'm talking about, kept kind of slipping offside. I personally can't see that. I think it would be totally bananas for a player who's running alongside him to be offside, because all he has to do is stay behind the ball. And personally, I think Troy Parrott should have passed it. Now, I know what you're going to say to me. You're going to say, well, he scored, so why are you saying that? And I'm telling you, because the finish was so bad. He basically only got a tiny touch on the ball. It went straight at the keeper and just hit the underside of the keeper and looped up and into the net. And he should have passed it, in my personal opinion. Now, the flip side of that, playing devil's advocate, is it shows Troy Parrott, after his great season at Excelsior in Holland, is now incredibly confident and thinks he can score all the goals himself. But if the keeper had saved that, as arguably he should have done, I think Troy Parrott would have looked like he had big egg on his face personally. And sometimes it is important to be, a team player as well. And if there's a better option for you to score the winner, you should personally pass it. But like I said, he scored his goal, so who am I to say? Next bit of Spurs news. Sonny has released some quotes, done an interview where he's talked a little bit about Mikey Moore and some of the other players in the squad. Here is what Sonny said. He said, collectively, from the more regular starters to those coming on, everyone has been so supportive and has wanted to improve. I'm so appreciative of that because it has helped bring everyone together, said the South Korean star. Sometimes when we've been in a tough moment, this group has shown that everybody is ready to play for this team, and I'm really pleased to see that as captain. So he was asked specifically about Mikey Moore, and that's what he said in reply. So I think what the Spurs team and players, and especially the captain in this instance, are trying to do is show Mikey Moore, as a young player who's had a few minutes, that he is really, really got what it takes, and to keep his confidence up, and also but to keep his feet on the ground. And he'll need to really work hard if he's going to properly break his way into the first team. Okay, back to some more general transfer news and Premier League news, and I have to start with that news that Manchester City have launched an unprecedented legal action against the Premier League. As it said in the Times yesterday, it has sparked civil war amongst the clubs, with a hearing about it due to start next week, June the 10th. City have described the Premier League's financial rules as a tyranny of the majority. They're trying to end the Premier League. That's what some Manchester City Twitter accounts have said. They're fighting a civil war against the Premier League. Now, what this is all to do with is they are trying to claim that the rules that the Premier League brought in a couple of years ago, around the time that Newcastle were bought by Saudi Arabia, and these rules were brought in to stop state-owned clubs, or any club really, who have a relationship with a company who are sponsoring them. So if you think about it in Manchester City terms, the obvious one is Etihad. And what Manchester City have been accused of in a lot of those 115 charges is of the owner of, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, who's also their chairman, putting loads of money into Etihad, and then, because Etihad is the airline of Abu Dhabi, and then Etihad saying, okay, Man City, we will overinflate your sponsorship deal by so many millions or hundreds of millions of pounds, and therefore that circumnavigates Premier League profit and sustainability rules, financial fair play, and Manchester City have had more money to spend. Then since the 2 years, the rule that was brought in 2 years ago, they claim that has basically the democracy of the Premier League's 14 clubs have to rule anything in or out when a vote comes in. And Manchester City say that rule is is out of order and shouldn't happen. They don't want democracy. They think everybody should be allowed to do whatever they want. They should be allowed to spend as much money as they want. And they seemingly, according to the Times, they have one other club who agree with them. Now, let me know in the comments which club you think that might be. I personally think it's pretty obvious. But I have to say, this is unbelievably bananas, I think, of Man City. And the only reason I can think that they're doing it is once again to try and wrap the Premier League's legal team in red tape, take some of their focus away from the 115 charges, make that all take longer, and really kind of postpone the final hearing that will give Manchester City their punishment. It's really, I just think it's embarrassing. I have to say, I said it on Twitter yesterday, I'll say it again, I would be embarrassed to be a Manchester City fan right now. Of course, they've won 4 in a row. They've won 6 out of the last 7. And for the fact that they're then complaining, saying that it's anti-competitive, these Premier League rules are anti-competitive, that is like irony beyond irony. But I saw an influencer called Stephen McInerney, who I used to work with. He's a good guy. And he was saying on Twitter yesterday, he's like, actually, at some point, I just want all this to be over, because no matter how much I enjoy watching Man City play and win, this does cloud over being a City fan, and they want it over, and I would too. It's disgraceful, really. When you join the Premier League, you sign up to the rules. That's as simple. And then, like I said, any rule that gets potentially pitched, you then have to get 13 other clubs to agree with you to pass that rule. It's as simple as that. It's democracy. You cannot complain about democracy, but to be honest, am I surprised that nation states like Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi are complaining against democracy and would rather it be everyone can do whatever they want? No, I guess I'm not surprised. Anyway, more on some other transfer news now. Manchester United have apparently submitted a bid of £51 million for Benfica's João Neves. It was rejected immediately. They want £85 million according to Record in Portugal. Now, this is not a huge surprise to me because, as we know, when Man United come bidding for players, the clubs who own those players straight away reject, because they know some of the madness that Manchester United have done before. Think about the Antony move. At the beginning of the summer where Antony moved from Ajax to Manchester United, Ajax were only looking for £45 million for him. Then Ajax sold another of their players. Then Manchester United came in for Antony, and Ajax were like, well, actually, no, we don't want to sell him because we've already sold one of our first team players. We don't need the money at this point. And Man United kept going in for him until he was sold for £80 million, Antony. And we've all seen how he's done since then. Not very well. More Man United news. The feasibility of a move for Jared Branthwaite from Everton, who's one of their top targets, could depend, this is according to The Athletic, by the way, could depend on whether Everton need to desperately sell before June the 30th. Man United are going to wait. Like I've talked about before, the vultures circling the kind of the body that is struggling to survive on the floor, and Man United will make a late bid for that. I talked at the top of the show about Chelsea trying to steal all other clubs' targets. Chelsea currently, apparently on the top of their target list, Michael Olise, Eberechi Eze, Nico Williams from Athletic Bilbao, and also have an admiration for Evan Ferguson and Benjamin Sesko. All those players are kind of top targets for the other clubs, and Chelsea are just kind of biding their time till maybe they can sell Conor Gallagher and Trevor Chalobah, get that money in to conform to profit and sustainability rules at the end of this June, and then they will go big again to add to the £1 billion plus that they have spent in the last couple of years. Unbelievable. Also, according to Bild in Germany, Chelsea have registered an interest for Deo Upamecano, the centre-back from Bayern Munich. He is the one, as I think I mentioned yesterday, who is likely to be sold, meaning Eric Dyer and Matthias de Ligt will stay at the club. Meanwhile, according to Matt Law, very good journalist, check him out, Chelsea players are in for a shock when they return to pre-season training with some of their favourite food and drinks in danger of being cut from the menu by their new manager Enzo Maresca. What does this sound like? Any Spurs fans still watching? Juan de Ramos. Don't forget, when Juan de Ramos came from Seville to manage Spurs, first thing he did, steal the ketchup and the mayonnaise. And Tottenham players from that era still talk about it in interviews to this day. And when Harry Redknapp replaced Ramos, because Ramos only got 2 points from his first 8 games the following season, the first thing he did was bring in some ketchup and mayonnaise, slap it on the players' table, and get them right on side straight away. According to The Athletic, Arsenal are in pole position to sign Benjamin Sesko this month, but as we've heard, Chelsea looking to take him as well. Meanwhile, Arsenal and Milan have already approached Girona winger Viktor Zinkakov. They've actually approached his entourage, apparently. According to Sky, Mikel Arteta is in love with the player, who has a £30 million release clause and believes he could fit perfectly into his Arsenal team. However, also on the list for Zinkankov, and let me know in the comments, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, are AC Milan and Tottenham Hotspur looking at him as well. I have to say, as bleak as this is, if Spurs and Arsenal are in for the same players at the moment, I think Big Ange will have to do great work on his legendary telephone calls to get any of them to come to Spurs, because Arsenal are, unfortunately, a little bit ahead of us. But with the right moves, I do think Spurs can catch up quickly, just like Arsenal did. A couple of seasons ago, let's not forget, there was that big game for who'd get fourth place at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We beat them 3-0. Everyone was saying it was the end of Arsenal, and then they quickly grew with their project. Well, we have to quickly grow with our project now. So Man City rumours. Julian Alvarez is apparently a target for Atletico Madrid. Once again, I feel like I'm saying it every day. Is it the rats leaving the sinking ship? Everything seemingly going weirdly and wrong at Man City. Pep Guardiola may be coming to the end of his stay as manager. If not this summer, then at the end of next season. And of course, all of those trials and tribunals about to happen. So are players asking their agents to sniff around as to where they can go? Other Man City news, Kevin De Bruyne has said the following when asked whether he would move to Saudi Arabia. He said, "Saudi, at my age, you have to be open to everything. You're talking about incredible amounts of money in the last stage of my career. You have to think about that. For my wife, an exotic adventure is okay. I have to think about my future," he said. So, looks like Kevin De Bruyne is greasing the wheels for a move to Saudi Arabia. How much money do you need? He must have been on like 250 grand a week for the last, 5 years at least, and then 100 or 150 grand a week for the 5 years before that. Anyway, top player. He's been an incredible player in the Premier League. Some Aston Villa rumours, as I mentioned, they have held preliminary talks with Conor Gallagher, but they are also interested in Matteo Guendouzi. Do you remember him? The ex-Arsenal central midfielder. And apparently Villa have submitted a bid of 25 million euros to Lazio for him. Unai Emery loves him since he managed him at Arsenal, and they're looking for some more squad depth as they hit the Champions League this summer. And apparently Guendouzi, who is a bit of a firecracker, let's face it, he's got that ridiculous big hair, not that I can talk about it, he doesn't have a great relationship with Lazio's manager Igor Tudor, and there is some talk as to whether Tudor will leave or stay at Lazio, but if he stays, it looks like Guendouzi will go. A little bit of West Ham news. The deal for Palmeiras winger Luis Guilherme is back on, with financial elements agreed with the club and the player. That one looks like it might be about to go through. It was stop and start and stop and start. Looks like it's going to go through. They're also, West Ham, looking to derail Bayer Leverkusen's attempt to sign Girona's Spanish midfielder Alex Garcia, 26 years old. That's according to The Guardian. And they're also interested in Portugal winger Jota Silva from Vitória Guimarães in Portugal. So West Ham going quite, quite big early in the window. Now they've got their manager Julian Lopetegui, and he seems to be keen on players, knows who he wants, and West Ham trying to get their deals done early, which is always the best way. You want your players in for the pre-season, and hopefully Tottenham Hotspur will be able to do that as well. Some general news, the proposal to scrap VAR is set to be rejected by Premier League clubs when they meet this week. I think, as we know, the proposal has been put forward. 14 clubs need to agree to it, and if they did, VAR would be gone. My personal opinion, and let me know what you think in the comments, but my personal opinion is, if the proposal to scrap VAR does not go through and they want VAR to stay, then clubs can no longer complain about it. We cannot have any more of these statements after a referee or a VAR makes a mistake. It has to stop. We have to just live with it. We have an opportunity here to get rid of it, which in my personal opinion would be the best thing to do. But if they choose not to, then you just have to stick to it. And we just have to live with it and try and improve it. Get it to the stage that FIFA have it in during the kind of international tournaments, or UEFA do, where it's much quicker, it's more AI based, and I think it's just much better. It's so much quicker, and you don't get stuck wondering what's going to happen. I just want it back where we can celebrate goals, to be honest. I'm sure you've seen yesterday, if you didn't, going back to West Ham, but on more general news, apparently the FA want to ban Lucas Paquetá for life, as extraordinary details of his betting scam have been revealed. 60 bets placed on the West Ham star to be booked in games that he was playing in. That is according to The Sun. Whether you can believe what the Sun come out with is up to you to decide, but sounds like the FA are looking to throw the book at Lucas Paquetá. Some kind of foreign transfer news now. According to Juan Laporta, the chairman of Barcelona, Robert Lewandowski has rejected all their financial proposals to stay at Barcelona. Could we be in for a late career Premier League move for Robert Lewandowski? That would be fascinating, wouldn't it? Tottenham may be looking for a number 9. Fancy Lewandowski as a little fox in the box? I wouldn't mind. There's no reports of that, but just putting it out there. According to Pletty the German journalist, Bayern Munich are willing to sell Kingsley Coman this summer and will listen to offers. He could be one interesting a lot of Premier League clubs, I would have thought. Top player, really talented. Meanwhile, back at Burnley, I mentioned yesterday one of the weirdest stories I'd heard, which is that Burnley were approaching, apparently, Alan Pardew to potentially be their manager. Well, today, the madhouse continues. They've talked to Frank Lampard about perhaps replacing Vincent Kompany as their manager. Lampard does need a new start. The Championship might be a good place for him to go to, and at a club where they're already playing good, forward-thinking, progressive football. That might work for him. Some other news, Paulo Dybala, now 30 years old. Tottenham were, of course, interested in him a few years ago. Spurs fans got very excited about that. He has a €12 million release clause in his contract, and it's valid until July the 31st. And apparently, he is open to a Premier League transfer. Sky Sports News reporting that. Would you take Dybala at your club? Imagine. We get, I'm just talking about Spurs now. I'm in dreamland here, but we get Eza in as the main, and then we get Lewandowski and Dybala in as just some squad depth, and then go on to win the Europa League. I am in. It's the hope that kills you. It's funny season. We can think whatever we want. Meanwhile, Xavi Simons taking his time to decide on his next club on loan, as Paris Saint-Germain have no intention of selling him this summer. FC Bayern, in addition to Leipzig, are keen on signing him. Decision, according to Fabrizio Romano, could be taken within weeks. And finally, bit of managerial merry-go-round news. Sergio Conceição has left FC Porto. He'd been there for 7 seasons, winning 11 trophies. And a lot of big clubs in England as well have been sniffing around Conceição over the last couple of years. But the big rumour coming out yesterday is that he may well be the next Marseille coach. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please do drop this video a like, press subscribe if you haven't, and if you want daily transfer news, starting always, of course, with my beloved Spurs. And if you want to become a Pro member or a Patreon member, all the details in the description box below, only £1 a month. You can also listen to this as an audio podcast. Just go to your favourite podcast platform, be that Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Search for the Spurred On podcast, and you can find me there every single day. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.